Well, tonight, President John Dramani Mahama delivers scathing judgment of NPP's economic management as he presents his first State of the Nation address of his second term.
I am moved to make a similar purposeful and bold declaration that I, John Dramani Mahama, I will fix the economic crisis confronting our country.
We have details as John Mahama declares the state will go after looters, declaring persons implicated in the NSS ghost name scandal with assets of former managers to be frozen.
As part of our Operation Recover All the Loot policy, ORA, I've already tasked our investigative bodies to bring the culprits of the National Service ghost name scandal to justice. Such brazen theft of public funds must not go unpunished.
We have more from Parliament on top story here, brought to you by Telecel, connecting energies and holy insecticide spray and coil. Enjoy a holy sleep. Tonight, President John Dramani Mahama has delivered a scathing judgment of the erstwhile NPP government's management of the economy in his first State of the Nation address of his second term as president. In more than 2 hours, John Mahama rebuked the former government of leaving the country in a dire economic situation. Despite all these, the president told Parliament he was not before MPs to lament but to prefer concrete solutions to fixing the country's problems. Listen to the president.
And propelled by the massive mandate given to me by the good people of Ghana, I am moved to make a similar purposeful and bold declaration that I, John Dramani Mahama, I will fix the economic crisis confronting our country and reset it on a path of growth and prosperity. That I will fix the economic crisis confronting our country and reset it on a path of growth and prosperity. My government, working with you and every Ghanaian, will solve the challenges because we have developed the plan with our people's support. When I decided to run for president again, I did so because of what I knew about the state of our country. I was aware that huge problems awaited me upon assumption of office. But nothing could prepare anyone for the reality of the depths to which our economy and our governance had sunk. Our elders say that a frog's true length can be ascertained only after it has died. And how right they were. It is common knowledge that our economy is in dire straits, which is putting it mildly, because an initial assessment of the books we have discovered, after initial assessment of the books, we have discovered that our economic problems are much deeper than was previously known. We have inherited a country that is broken on many fronts. The profundities of the challenges confronting us are staggering. We are saddled with staggering debts and glaring signs of almost deliberate and in some cases reckless mismanagement of our resources. Mr. Speaker, not even the restraints of an IMF program were enough for the previous economic managers to exercise prudence in managing our finances. After setting an inflation target of 18% by the end of 2024, the actual outturn was 23.8%. Significantly higher than the threshold agreed with the IMF. The Ghana cedi continued its downward slide, losing 19% of its value against the dollar in 2024. It had already in the previous year lost 27.8% of its value. In addition to the public debt, which amounts to a staggering 721 billion cedis.
So that's the former president speaking in Parliament today. Let's bring you our parliamentary affairs correspondent, Kweku Asante, because he has been sitting through the proceedings the whole of the day, and he joins me with more from Parliament. Kweku, let's start from the economy. John Mahama mentioned the debt situation. What picture did he paint?
Mahama says the current debt stands way above 700 billion Ghana cedis. And in fact, pouring through some of the data that they've had and the kind of information that they really had, it is now that they are realizing how deep a hole the government is in currently in terms of the debt situation. In fact, he also talks about the sinking fund, for instance, that the SONA government talked about leaving a lot of money in it and all that. John Mahama says that SONA government left just a paltry sum of money into the sinking fund, which will be used ultimately to pay debts and all that.
Several state-owned enterprises are also in debt, including the ECG, which owes 68 billion Ghana cedis. Ghana Cocoa Board, the hope of cocoa farmers, is also highly indebted. Its balance sheet indicates a total debt of 32.5 billion Ghana cedis, of which 9.7 billion is due to be paid at the end of September 2025. In 2023-2024 crop season, Cocoa Board was unable to supply 333,767 metric tons of cocoa, which it had sold at $2,600 per ton. As a result, the then management of Cocoa Board rolled over these contracts into the 2024-2025 season. Honorable members, Mr. Speaker, this implies that for every ton of cocoa delivered this year, in fulfillment of the rollover contracts, Cocoa Board and Ghanaian farmers are going to lose $4,000 in revenue. Mr. Speaker, as I address this honorable House, Cocoa Board has supplied 210,000 tons out of the rolled over contract, resulting in a revenue loss of $840 million for both Cocoa Board and the Ghanaian farmer. Mr. Speaker, Cocoa Board and the Ghanaian farmer will lose another $495 million by the time the board finishes supplying the remaining rolled over contracts.
President John Dramani Mahama speaking. And Kweku, he also found time to respond to claims of the NPP that it had left buffer for coupons of bondholders. What more did he say?
Called that a couple of weeks back when John Dramani Mahama returned from Germany, he did instruct the finance minister to pay bondholders their fourth coupon. At the time, it was said by the New Patriotic Party that the amount of money was paid because the outgone government had left enough buffers and in fact had left enough in the sinking fund to be able to pay it. John Dramani Mahama says that was not the case and actually went ahead to reveal exactly how much the government had left in the sinking fund.
There have been claims that buffers were left for debt repayments, oncoming debt repayment this year. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, let me give you the statement of account for the debt service reserve account, which is also popularly referred to as the sinking fund. This fund shows a balance of only $64,000 in the dollar account, $64,000 in the dollar account, and 143 million Ghana cedis in the CD account. The repercussions of the accumulation of debt and economic mismanagement will require extensive work and sacrifice to repair. In the next 4 years, to put things in context for you, Mr. Speaker, in the next 4 years, our debt servicing will amount to 280 billion cedis. And this comprises of 150 billion for domestic debt and 130 billion in external debt servicing. Our catastrophic debt position has also severely impacted infrastructural projects, that should have been completed. Currently, there are 55 stalled projects due to the default of debt and subsequent restructuring, with a total value of $2.95 billion not disbursed. The stalling of these projects is expected to result in a cost overrun of about 15 billion cedis. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding this gloomy background, I remain committed to leading this government and taking every necessary step to reset our economy, getting things back on track, and working with the good people of our country to build the Ghana we want.
Well, Kweku, away from the economy, other matters such as the NSS ghost names also found their way onto the president's address. Bring us up to speed on what the president said in relation to that.
So this forms a big part of the government's oral agenda, the Operation Recover All Loot. And we know that there is this claim by the Fourth Estate First, which National Security is also currently investigating, that the erstwhile administration added more than 70,000 names on the NSS payroll, which they say has led to the state losing nearly 50 million Ghana cedis every month to private interests. Dr. Mahama says all the persons implicated from the FY government will be dealt with. But first, he has instructed that the persons who are implicated, who are currently on the run, be declared wanted and their assets traced and frozen.
As part of our Operation Recover All the Loot policy, ORA, I've already tasked our investigative bodies to bring the culprits of the National Service ghost name scandal to justice. Such brazen theft of public funds must not go unpunished. It is estimated that the criminal addition of some more than 80,000 ghost names could have yielded the suspects over 50 million Ghana cedis every month. Unfortunately, some of these suspects are believed to have absconded from the country already. I have directed that they be declared wanted and their assets traced and frozen until investigations are completed. To achieve a legally robust regime to govern national service.
So that's President John Dramani Mahama there in Parliament earlier today. Now, former Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam has been disagreeing with the president's assertions. He says the Akufo-Addo administration borrowed to improve the economy.
Went through as a country, not just Ghana, the whole world went through these challenges of COVID, the war in Ukraine. The NDC will not accept that. And even the IMF and the World Bank, they have reiterated the effect of COVID and the war in Ukraine as all over the world. So if you want to look at how we came by these debts, the context is very clear. But it is not just about mentioning the debt figures. You measure debt sustainability, which is what we are working to achieve in terms of your GDP. So number one, you have to ask yourself, the money you borrowed, what did you use it for? The Akufo-Addo government borrowed, but we also used it to increase the size of the GDP by $20 billion. $20 billion is no mean achievement that you have borrowed and you've added to the size of the GDP over 7 years, $20 billion United States dollars. It means that we've used the money well, we've used the money productively, we've used it to build the economy. Secondly, if you also want to look at sustainability, you look at the debt figures as against the GDP. Now, if you look at the indicator of debt sustainability that we left, it was 72% of GDP. And don't forget that it had risen to above 80%. But because of our productive debt management strategy, we brought it down to 72% of GDP. The NDC, when they left office in 2016, what was their sustainability outlook? By the end of 2016, the debt to GDP was 4%. So I'm surprised President Mahama is talking about debt when he handed over 74% of GDP in debt sustainability to the Akufo-Addo government. And this is why we're saying that it is about debts. Every government has accrued debts. Remember, in 2017, when NPP took over, the energy sector alone had a debt of $2.5 billion.
Today we are told it's $2.2 billion.
2.5 billion United States dollars. Okay? The road sector had debts. The cocoa sector had debts. But President Akufo-Addo took the bull by the horn. He accepted responsibility. He didn't say because of this debts, he was not going to provide leadership. And this is what I expect President Mahama to do. Now, let's look at the state of the economy.
Right.
Now, the state of the economy before NDC left office in 2016. An economy that grew at 7.2% in the third quarter. And by the end of the year, when the fiscal data is out, you will see above 6%. Compared to the 3.4% Mahama left office with, the current account balance at the time Mahama left office was minus 3.1%. That was a deficit. Akufo-Addo left office with a surplus of 5.9%. Okay? Similarly, trade balance. He left office in 2016 with a deficit of 2% of GDP. Akufo-Addo left office with a surplus of 4%. International reserves. Mahama left office with about 3.5 months of import cover. President Akufo-Addo left office with 4 months of import cover in international reserves.
So that's former Finance Minister Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam. We've been joined on the line by economist Professor Bokping. He is with the University of Ghana School of Business. Prof, I'm grateful to you for joining us here. You understand how the economy really plays out well. You've heard a former Finance Minister say they added $20 billion to the GDP from their borrowings. The present government is also, and as many people have described the extra government in the past, as engaging in, quote, reckless, unquote, borrowing. What does that really mean if the finance minister says, well, we borrowed, but we added $20 billion to the GDP?
Good evening, and good evening to our cherished listeners. It's interesting. The reason I say it's interesting is that the two main political parties, they do these things to each other, okay? Can I take you back to 2017? Let me take you back to 2017. The former president, his first State of the Nation's address, and I quote from the paragraph. Mr. Speaker, I say nothing new or dramatic when I tell this honorable house that the economy of our country is in a bad state. After all, in the run-up to the recent elections, I've said so often and loudly. 6 weeks after taking over the reins of government, it gives me no pleasure to have to say that our worst fears have been confirmed, plus a few additional unpleasant surprises as well. End of quote. This was the former president during his first State of the Nation's address. Fast forward, 8 years or so after, come back to 2025, and I read, quote, it is common knowledge that our economy is in dire straits, which is putting it mildly because after an initial assessment of the books, we have discovered that our economic problems are much deeper than was publicly known. We have inherited a country that is broken on many fronts. The profundities of the challenges are staggering. End of quote. This is Ghana for you. The best people to judge between the two main political parties and the state of our economy has to do with the ordinary Ghanaian. And they couldn't have spoken much louder than they did in the December elections. So if you look at the debt numbers, right, at the time, in 2017, actually, at the time when the NPP was describing the economy as so bad, inflation, they inherited inflation of 15.4%. If you look at debt service to revenue ratio, even public debt to GDP ratio, without debt restructuring, the NPP have debt restructuring to be thankful for what they are leaving behind. Otherwise, it could have been that, it could have been serious. I don't know how to put it. First, you look back, December 2022, we ended inflation with 54.1%. In fact, by the third quarter of December of 2022, our debt to GDP ratio in present value terms was 109% of GDP. The IMF uses a discount rate of 5%. So if you just look at just a nominal debt to GDP, right, you were talking about something in excess of 112%. Okay, so, but at the end of the day, we can also see, and data exists to support that the size of the economy in 2016 compared to the size of the economy in 2024 is not the same, right? So the previous government had added, yes, close to $20 billion to the economy, but that's to be expected, right? With oil, with gold, and all of that. In the same breath, we can say that the economy that the NDC took over in December or January 2009 is not the same economy they handed over in January 2016 and all of that. So we can look at all those statistics. But I think what is becoming clearer is that even though over $20 billion has been added to our economy, the previous government data exists to confirm that they left this country in a much poorer state. In fact, if you look at the poverty numbers, we are talking about the fact that approximately 30% of Ghanaians are in extreme poverty. At the time the NPP was leaving office in January 2025, if you compare that to Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, that is largely on course in reducing extreme poverty drastically and consolidating their lower middle income status and moving more towards upper middle income poverty. You compare that to Ghana, you can say that we have deteriorated.
But Prof, can we compare ourselves to Ivory Coast, which has a lot of buffers, or you say, for lack of a better word, backing from the French government?
But it's not only Ivory Coast. So many other countries in West Africa have backings from France. But you can see the difference. When we talk about inflation, that inflation is lower in Ivory Coast compared to Ghana, we are able to isolate the exchange rate pass-through effect, because the exchange rate pass-through effect is not that strong in Ivory Coast because their currency is pegged to the euro and all of that. But when it comes to food inflation and all of that, then what Ivory Coast is doing, lean government and all of that, you cannot credit that to the fact that they are akin to France. No, because in many ways we also benefit from in terms of aid and others also through our colonial lineage and the rest of them. So the fact of the matter is that in fact, much of the disappointment with the NPP had to do with the fact that the expectation was so high. And let me also say, in as much as the former Minister of Finance was saying that they added $20 billion to our economy, let's also put on record that no government has had the kind of revenue and resources the NPP had within the 8-year period.
Okay.
And with that massive resources at their disposal, we're expecting much and more from them.
Okay. Do stay with me. Let me bring in Dr. Abdul Kabiru Tia Mahama. He's member of parliament for Walawale constituency, and he used to be an aide to former Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Kabiru, why did the government leave Ghana in a state so poor, as we are being made to understand, when it's the same government that had the most of resources than any government has ever had? Hello, Kabiru, are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. Thank you very much, and good evening for having me.
So I wanted to find out from you why your government, being the government in the history of Ghana to have received the much revenue than any other government, still left the country in such a poorer state, as we are being made to understand.
Yeah, so thank you. Before we can meaningfully discuss this topic, allegations are easy to make. You can castigate, you can say all sorts of things that you want to say about any outgoing government or any present government. It's not backed by any data, it's not backed by any figure. That.
Kabiru. Oh, we lost Kabiru there, but I still have Professor Bokpi on the line. Prof, so, I mean, if you look at the fact that this government has that done some payment in terms of those DDP bond holders, some 6 billion and over, and the fuel we understand they've purchased and all of that. Can we really say that the previous government left nothing in the coffers of the state?
Well, politicians do that to themselves and all of that. I mean, there hasn't been any money printing since this new government took over and all of that. Leadership governance is continuum. Yes, certainly, if you look at the liabilities, our obligations vis-a-vis the revenues that have come in and all of that, you cannot say that you left money so much in the coffers, because how much you left or how much they inherited, the revenue that have come in the first few months. And then also remember that from the expenditure in advance of appropriation, which was passed, right, by a resolution of Parliament, had actually set in motion some payment obligations, expenditure, and all of that, and the difference that has to be borrowed. So you realize that the borrowing that had been set in place, right, and therefore it's just government keeping to that. But of course, the president will also highlight these things because it tells you the importance they place on honoring these obligations as a way of consolidating the confidence in the market. One would have been surprised if any effort by this government had been to go contrary to that. Because remember, the president, and he mentioned that in the State of the Nation address, the honeymoon effect of the regime change was already impacting positively on our interest rates. Oversubscription in the money market, 91 day, 182 day, 364 day, and you could see the yield also coming down to some extent. So we needed to honor this payment. And what is also good is that they have also strengthened the sinking fund, right, and communicated that to the market. So the signal effect is very good. So at the end of the day, we can say that, yes, there's a build-up, there's a schedule, there's a memorandum of understanding that the previous government has put in place and all of that. And the government is also continuing with that. Of course, there's also been some rationalization and priority in terms of which obligations have to be honored as and when they fall due, which ones need more investigation and all of that.
All
so
right,
you can see that. And finally, let me say that it's not strange. If you read the State of the Nation's address of the former president in 2017, similar statements were made about outstanding payment that they also made within the first few weeks and all of that. At the time when they said that there was nothing in the coffers. This is politics for you. But we can isolate the politics, look at the reality, and see where Ghana stands.
Professor Godfred Bokping, I'm grateful to you for joining us. Let's bring in Kabiru Tia Mahama, doctor. He was an aide to the former vice president. Kabiru, why did the government leave a paltry $64,000 in the sinking fund? Why?
Well, I want to say that a government that wants to carry along the people should not be engaged in peddling falsehoods, should not be engaged in peddling, if you like, unfounded allegations against the predecessor. It is not true that the money left by the NPP government in the sinking fund is $64,000. Now, let me explain. There are different sinking funds. We have the IMF proceeds fund, we have the Eurobond fund, and we have the T-main account 2, with the Minister of Finance, which is the, if you like, the end of year revenue, where the end of year revenue is deposited. So if the president conveniently goes to take only one of the sinking funds, goes to take only one, forgetting that we have the Eurobond proceeds account, we have the IMF proceeds account, and the Treasury main 2 accounts, all are sinking funds. That if you have revenue in excess of a cap, you put it into the account. The president is lying to the group of Ghana. He's painting a picture that is not accurate.
Okay, so how much exactly did you leave in those funds you are talking about?
For instance, in the Treasury main 2 accounts, there is end of year revenue of 3 billion. That is one. 2, we have the 700 million Ghana cedi of excess of the subscription of the Treasury bill that was issued in January. That was not used. It's left in that account. In January alone, a revenue generation of 6 billion was earned to the government due to the late payment in December. These are examples of funds. The government has not even come to tell us how much was earned or realized from the sweeping of accounts across board. These are all revenue sources. So if you've not updated the guarantee, how much did I get from the sweeping of accounts, which is money held by respective agencies at their respective accounts with the central bank, and you sweep all those accounts into a centralized account. There was money in the treasury bill account. There was money, the treasury mail account. There was money from the IMF proceeds account. And you go to take only thinking fund. Thinking fund is a cap over the stabilization fund. It's only one.
Will your side compel the finance minister to bring these realities you're talking about, if indeed they are true?
We would engage in the budget debate. We engage in the State of Nation address debate. We engage when we've even asking them to publish the various accounts. If you want the Ghanaian people to believe that you are not telling lies, then publish those accounts. That is one thing. Again, the president lied to the good people of Ghana, stating that they have now resisted.
We're with you. Okay, I think we've lost Kabiru there. That's it for the top story here, brought to you by Telecel, connecting energies and holy insecticide spray and coil. Enjoy a holy sleep. Up next is Newsnight.